So, Coach, super excited to have you on. I was just kind of admiring your setup right now. What kind of mic do you got?
It's a little Shure mic. I think the analog one's like SM7B. This is like the digital one that plugs right into your computer. Makes it a little bit easier, so you don't have to have the converter.
Yeah, I'm not at that point where I think I want to get a converter though. In the house I live in, my older brother just moved out because I got married and stuff, and I'm thinking about turning that old room into like a podcast room. But it's just finding time, and then it's like, okay, do I really want to buy all this other stuff if I'm really not gonna, be doing it all the time either?
Yeah. The good thing about audio though is like audio lasts forever. Like it never goes obsolete. Video, I mean, you're constantly getting like a new camera, right? New, 4K, 8K, just keeps on going. But like you get a good mic. I mean, a good mic from, 50 years ago, is still a good mic today. So that's actually pretty the cool thing about audio.
Yeah, and the audio needs to come first, especially if it's a podcast and you're doing meetings. And it's like the camera.
100%.
It's like, who cares about your face? Like
100%.
I'm not gonna be a model, so it's probably not as important.
Yeah, somebody told me one time when I have a little bit of experience in video and audio and stuff. I just self-taught and got into it. Somebody told me one time that people will put up with bad video, but not bad audio. No matter how much they want to hear the content, if it's hissy, it sounds bad, they turn it off.
I want to say I might have been in high school, and I remember you had like a camera that you were going around with, and you would put together like I think you did it a few years in a row, but it was like a Clovis highlight reel. Is
Yep.
that kind of how like you started getting good at video? As you wanted to do that?
Yeah, I started doing it when I was like just getting out of high school. I always like technology. I was the kid that was on a computer when I was young, which is funny because I'm a wrestling guy and really into sports, but I'm kind of a sport nerd too. I like computers. I got into video, started learning about it, learning about audio, and just try to see what I can learn and put together. I'm big into trying to figure things out. So yeah, so I started doing that and then started making them, watching other people, learning from that, and yeah, just kept getting better at it as time went on.
It seems like with this, like I'm not good at this stuff, like computers and audio and stuff. It's like I don't necessarily want to pay somebody to do it, so I just need to figure it out, and then
Yeah,
that's normally how things go.
for sure. And if you do it yourself too, then there's a little bit of pride in it too, and you can when you hand it off to somebody else, then you're not really sure how the process is working, and when you put it together, then you can learn from it.
Yeah, I think it's a cliche where it's like you teach a man to fish, right? It's like I
No
could go
question.
get the fish for you, but you can figure it out.
Yeah, no question.
How active are you guys right now with wrestling?
So over many years, we've kind of figured out our own little system and kind of what we do. We typically go. So our calendar kind of looks like you start with beginning of school. That's kind of our preseason. When school starts, we kind of get the kids going slow at first, then try to build them into the season. Because once you hit the season, it's a grind, right? And if you go too hard, and by the way, all these things I talk about, I've learned because we did them wrong. You did it wrong and you got to learn from it. So if you go too hard, especially at this age, I came from the college level, many years ago now, but it's just a totally different level of intensity. And you come back to high school and you got to really adapt for, what high school is capable of. And so, like I said, once you hit the season, then it's about, pushing them hard, but also keeping them hanging on. It gets when it's, January. January kids are, they're kind of starting to break. You're trying to
Yeah.
keep them through the year, finish strong, do the best you can. And then once the season's over, state tournament's over, we take a little break. Doesn't mean that kids don't wrestle and do other things. We just don't grind them as a team. Give them about a month, and then we start kind of our spring, summer training, which we go pretty hard. We lift, try to wrestle, April, May, June. But again, what I found from many years of doing it is the kids are really good when they have structure, like going to school. But once they lose that structure in the summertime, they kind of turn into turds. And I don't mean that we all do, right? I was
Yeah.
there, I was a kid, but like they stop going to bed, they start getting up at noon. Like they just lose all sense of structure. So they're pretty good for a couple of weeks into the summer, and then it just really starts fading. We used to try to go longer, and you're just fighting them. You're fighting yourself. Doesn't make any sense. So we go April, May, and then we'll go a couple weeks into June. And by that time, they're kind of turning into that summer mode, which is fine. And then they get their, next 6 weeks, 7 weeks, whatever of summer. They obviously, a lot of them will still wrestle, still do things. I tell them what they need to do individually. Like if you're serious, you'll be lifting, you know,
Yeah.
I'm not going to do it for you. I can't do everything for you. At some point, you got to have some ownership. But if you're serious, you'll be lifting. If you're not, then when it comes back to the season, just don't tell me how serious you are and how you're not getting the opportunities that you wanted. So that kind of stuff. And then, like I said, it kind of alluded to, we want to give them a break because they got to be fired up when. So my kind of litmus test is they got to be asking, when are we going to start practice when school starts? If they're not, it's not going to be a good year. They got to be fired up about wrestling, right? You got to be like, coach, we got to get in there. Like, when are we going to have practice? Like, I want to get on the mat, because now they're ready, ready to get into a full season grind. And we've done it before where sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No,
done
you're
before
good.
where you make a mistake, and like you go, and then wrestling starts, and not so much us as a team, but I've seen individuals, they go so hard or cut weight all summer, and then school starts and they're like already kind of, lukewarm on wrestling. I'm like, this isn't going to go well.
Or I feel like it's hard for me to sometimes to coach kids that aren't like me. Like, I love wrestling and I want to be around it all the time. Like, I think I try to take a break and go camping for a week. And I'm like, guys, like, I'm going to be on my phone. Like, and I'm talking to the other coaches, like, I'm not going to be on my phone. I'm not going to have any cell reception. Like, I'm taking a break. Monday, we're in a spot where there's not a lot of like tree cover, and like I have signal, and like my brain's just going, and I'm like sending out texts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Do you feel like with some of these kids that maybe, they love wrestling, but it's not their thing, to for lack of better words, is that something where for those kids, you have to kind of pull them in a little bit, like especially during like May and June? It's like, all right, we only got another month, guys. It's like,
Yeah.
hey, keep showing up, like keep being consistent, keep lifting, keep going to bed on time.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, coaching is so much more than wrestling. It's so much more than on the mat, and a lot of it is teaching them how to love the sport, how to appreciate the sport. Rather than making everything a grind. Obviously, it's a hard sport, right? We all know it's hard, and you got to learn to appreciate that part too. But I was just talking to my business partner here. His daughter plays soccer, and wants to play soccer in college, and literally just having a conversation like, "Hey, what's she doing right now? Like, is she doing one thing a day to get better? Because if she's not that serious." Like, I tell my kids, like, again, the big thing now is everyone wants to talk about wrestling Division I. They have no clue what Division I is like. They're so far from understanding what Division I is like from the high school level. Like, they think it's like going junior high to high school. Like, it just, they're completely lost as the level, the number of kids you're eliminating, right? You take 100 kids and 99 are not wrestling Division I. So you're immediately going to the very, very top. And for 4, 5, 6, 7 years now of kids in that, in that Division I level, and they just don't understand what that's like. So, we'll have kids that, we have some good wrestlers, and, oh yeah, I want to wrestle Division I. I'm like, dude, you can't come to practice regularly. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I did stuff every single day, and I was, kind of like you, like I said, I was obsessive, and in a bad way sometimes, but that was just my personality. Like, I got obsessed with things. Like, very, I'm very, my wife would tell me, and my family would tell me, I'm very singular focused. Like, if I get focused on something, that's what I'm doing. Just like when I was doing the video thing, if I'm into that, I'm doing it and I'm all in. So when I was wrestling and I wanted, I had goals, like, I was thinking about what I was trying to, what I wanted to do to get better every single day. And it didn't mean your whole day revolved around it. It doesn't mean that you can't do other fun things, but like, you just does not show up, or, we got practice, twice a week, 3 times a week, and guys are showing up twice a week. One time I go, you're not serious. You're not a Division I wrestler, and how do you say that? It's like, you feel bad. Some people feel bad saying that, but I'd rather be honest with them and show them that, hey, you're not doing the things that it takes. I love you. Like, you're my buddy. Like, we have fun together, but I'm not going to blow smoke up your butt and tell you that, oh yeah, you're ready to go wrestle at Oregon State or wherever, Oklahoma right now. You're not there. And I think that helps them, get perspective and, hopefully grow and learn to do the things it takes, and then, maybe wrestle on.
I think that's one of the toughest things that everybody always says they want, is to hear the truth until they actually hear it. But I think for some of those guys that might hear that, it's like, you're not Division I ready. I think hopefully something that's for them, it can click. Like, I remember we went and watched a duel at Stanford, because I'm from the Santa Cruz area. And we'd go and watch the Stanford duel meet. I remember like being a freshman and talking to my coach, like, I want to do that. That's gonna be great. It's like, how are you going to go to Stanford? Like, your grades aren't good. Like, you don't wrestle as hard. Like, you need to get your life together.
Yeah.
And for me, I took that and went the opposite way. I'm like, okay, yeah, you're right. I need to take my grades more serious. And my GPA shot up, and I started wrestling a lot more and doing camps. But for some of our kids, it's like, okay, that's sustainable for like a month, but then it's like after that, it's like, I'm going to go on
Yeah.
vacation. And then that's kind of it for some of them.
Yeah, no, you gotta, like I said, I don't know any other way to put it. The people I've seen, I've been around some pretty successful people. The people I've seen that end up successful have that obsessive, personality with stuff. They do love wrestling. That's obviously, a big part of it, but then just being obsessed with wanting to do it and, and your goals and everything. And then a little bit of, like I said, funny, the guys that end up good too, a little bit delusional. Like, they never accept that they're not that good. Like, because we're all at that level, right? At some point where you think you're going to be a Division I national champion and you're in high school and you're so far away, right? But then you go in the room and you just get your ass kicked,
Yeah.
up and down and up and down. But most people, after so many of those, will give up because it's like, I'm just not as good as I thought I was. Like, maybe this isn't my thing, and they start coming up with 8 million reasons why they shouldn't wrestle, don't need to wrestle, whatever. But the guys ended up good. They just never accept that they're not good. It was like, yeah, you got lucky. I'm like, dude, you got beat like 100 to nothing today. You got pinned like 17 times. Yeah, but tomorrow, and I'm totally serious on this. I tell my sons this all the time. Like, that guy's coming back tomorrow, and he's thinking it's his day. Like, he's completely forgot about today. He's coming back tomorrow, and he thinks it's going to be his day. And if he does that enough, he'll end up being pretty good because that's how you grow. But that getting beat up and giving up that's human nature, right? And that's what most of us do. Not one day, but after a couple weeks, month, 2 months, 1 year, you go, this isn't my thing. So
Yeah.
just getting to that level and seeing those guys. I said, well, I've seen a lot of successful guys, and you see these similarities and go, man, you just got to keep coming back. Like, that's a big part of it.
I know Ben Askren had a book that came out maybe last year, but it was like the dichotomy of something. But it was like talking about having both those mentalities where it's like you have to be confident enough to where you can keep showing up and trusting yourself, but then also be humble enough to where you can still kind of learn and continue to grow. Do you feel like, I think we've all kind of met kids that maybe are a little bit delusional. How do you also kind of temper them with, hey, still be humble and still want to grow too?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, we're always, trying to help them learn, get better. And we can talk about this, but how wrestling has changed so much since I've been doing this. I think I'm in year 21 now in high school, and then not counting all the years I wrestled. Just so much more access, right, to training. You got Flow Wrestling, right, that is, came in, right at the end of my career, and now kids have access to everything that every high level guy is doing, and parents have access, right? So they're doing that a lot earlier, and they're training hard. And so there's so many things that when we get kids now from club wrestling, like, they think they're on top of the world. They think they've got wrestling totally dialed. Like,
Yeah.
there's not much left to learn for them. And it's a process for us. It used to not be like that. Are they better? Sure. They're way better coming in than they ever were before. But then you're fighting this battle of like unwinding some of the things they're doing, or just convincing them that you actually know something that they don't know, which sounds bizarre, but I can't tell you the number of kids that we've had that, like, and again, they're passive defiant, right? They're kids, so they're not going to tell you, coach, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about, you're an idiot, right? They don't say that. They just kind of look at you like, and then they do their own thing. So you can tell right away, like, again, this is years of coaching. You go, that kid's not ready he's not ready to listen. Like, he's just got it all figured out, and he's comfortable with what he's doing, and he doesn't want to make any changes. And then you just keep trying to remind him, like, hey, you're not getting better. You're having the same results. Like, maybe you start trying some of this stuff. Maybe you start listening to some of the things. And we try to do it, in a gentle way that, eventually because wrestling's a personal thing, right? They got to come to grips with, I want to get better. Like, I got to do something different. And so, like I said, we've had several of them now. It's just it's really different today how we get kids in that have wrestled in Dallas club wrestling, and then you're trying to expand their horizons. They already think they got all figured out. Hey, here's some things we can get better at, more the mental aspect of wrestling, how to approach things, how to think about it. And then by the end of their career, some of them are, have embraced that and are ready to move on and wrestle at a higher level, which is good.
And a lot of it's comfort. Like kids have become comfortable. It's like we've won enough at the youth level. It's like I already know how to win. But it's like you understanding. It's like okay, this isn't just about you might be winning a lot of the local tournaments or be competitive with some of the better high school guys. But this is like a lifelong pursuit of getting better. And if you're just going to be comfortable right now, it's like where do you go from there? And I think that's a tough thing. And I think it's interesting. Some of it does. I don't want to completely blame the parents, but a lot of it does come from the parents. Where it's like they have
Yeah.
access to all their other stuff, or they're kind of buddies with people, and they hang out at tournaments, and they're like, hey, come down and train like how we train.
Yeah.
But there's not necessarily a lot of I don't want to say like experience, but there's not a lot of experience coming from I've trained like this before, or I've like this is how my coaches did it. It's like they're just trying to figure it out on their own.
Yeah, no question. And it's two sides of the same coin. Like they're good because they put all this time in and they do lots of hard training. I call it hard training, right? You do lots of hard training. Everybody knows how to run hard training. Okay. Go in, drill super hard, wrestle hard live goes, conditioning, all the things that are hard, right? And that does make you better. There's no question. That's a big part of getting better at wrestling. But they don't understand that they're only getting one side. Like, okay, you're doing hard training and that's why you're good now, but you really don't know how to wrestle that well. Like, what do you mean I know how to wrestle? I win all the time. Well, you do at the youth level where the other kids don't know how to wrestle that well either. And then they get into high school, and I see a lot of these kids don't have the same growth trajectory once they get in high school, right? Things start flattening out. Obviously, the level's a lot higher. There's, more kids competing for the same spots. And then they can't figure out why they're not having success. I'm like, well, because you don't, and again, I don't mean it like derogatory because I'm not an expert. There are a lot of people who know way more than me, but I definitely know more than them and more than their parents for sure. And saying, hey, you're not that good at wrestling is not meant to be an insult. It's meant to be like, hey, you have a lot more that you can learn and continue to grow and get way better. And then just be really prepared for whatever you want to do beyond high school. But like I said, I see a lot of this. They do hard training. They're super tough. They know a couple positions they're really comfortable with, but they really don't understand what they're doing. My dad always calls it like they don't know how to manage their match. They don't know strategy. They don't know all the little parts that go into wrestling. All they know is go out there, slap hands, and wrestle live and be tough.
Yeah, and I
Which
think
I'm sure
that's
you
what.
see too.
No, and I think it's something where, like this last year I took a little bit of a step back from the youth just because I was getting my master's and I just got married and kind of needed some time to kind of shift things a little bit. I can't put, uh, can't be done at like 8:30 p.m. Every single night. But when I was coaching the youth, this was something that I kind of struggled with. I had taken over from Coach Moore, who's coaching some of the advanced practices, and a pretty physical, like intense guy, and I'm a little bit more laid back with certain things and. Trying to get the parents to kind of buy into a long-term vision of we're not just trying to be good right now, which if we just go and we scrap every night and you're in second, third grade and we scrap and we do a lot of live, yeah, you're going to be success. You're going to be great on the weekends. But I want them to have fun. Like I want them to enjoy it. I want them to love that wrestling room and want to be in that wrestling room for the next 10 to 15 years and beyond that if they come back and coach and whatever. But I remember I was coaching it was SUA State, and this is like, which is crazy. They have this age group, but it was like 6U or 8U or something like that.
Yeah.
And,
it's
it's like super short minute periods, which like you can't really find, the best wrestler in that amount of time. But I remember we had this lead and we just got a reversal and put the kid on his back. And I'm like, let's go down. Like it's third period, we're gonna go down. And the kid's like looking at me like scared, and they're like the dad behind me is going like this, and I'm like, no, like we're going down. Like we just spent all this time in practice going down. He just scored on bottom, and sure enough, the kid looks at me. He goes down. He freaks out. He gets cradled, put to it back, and pinned. And everyone's like, you're an idiot. You don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, what? It's like, it's getting better. He just scored in that position. And I'm like, this is about him getting better for high school and for college. And he's like, yeah, but it's not high school right now. And I'm like, okay. So I'm always trying to balance that. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know how I think, I'm sure when your kids were wrestling, you were a little more involved and with the club. Are you kind of like going through a similar kind of debacle where you're trying to figure out like the balance of long-term success, but also giving them something to kind of chew on and win, learning how to win early?
For sure. Yeah, no, it's hard. And one thing I think I probably made a mistake with my own kids. And again, there's nothing wrong with everybody makes mistakes, right? I probably should have had them wrestle more matches. So everybody wrestles so many matches, right? And I probably should have had him wrestle more matches, at least my older one when he was younger. I think there is something to that I probably discounted, and it's put him behind a little bit. But at the same time, he's got a pretty good foundation, and we're all trying to find the balance of. I know how hard wrestling is, and somebody told me one time, this always stuck with me. My kids may never be all world at wrestling, right? I can't control that. They got to, at some point, they're going to have obviously a pretty good foundation because I know how to wrestle a little bit and have some pretty good people around me and have learned from some pretty good people. But it's got to be their thing. Like, I'm just trying to get them to the point where they can decide, I really want to do this. Like, they're going to do it through high school. But then, hey, if there's a difference between doing it, right? Doing it through high school and, hey, this is my thing. Like, I want to do this. Like, I can't get enough. I want to do whatever it takes to be the best I can be. But that can't come from me, And I think parents, a lot of times it does come from the parents. And I'm not saying living through your kid. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you want it so bad, but the challenge is getting them to want it so bad. Do they want to do it? And whatever that is, if it's wrestling or any other sport for any other parent, like if you want to do something and you want to be great, like it has to come from within. There's got to be that internal drive, and you can set them up with all the tools and all the teachings, but at the end of the day, they got to take it over. So that's what I'm trying to get to. When I had kids, one of my old coaches, I said, so what did you want for your kids? And I'm new to having kids and obviously like wrestling and all stuff. And he's like, I just wanted my kid to want to go to the NCAAs with me when he was 25. I was like, or 30 or 35. And I go, that really makes sense because I want him to be good at wrestling, but more than that, I want him to appreciate wrestling and that we can go watch it together. And there will always be kids with more talent. There will always be kids that are, a kid better than you, right? There'll always be somebody that's better than you. And maybe you end up in the middle of the road. Maybe you end up at the top of the pack, but do you appreciate the sport versus you do it? It was really just a grind. And then how many people disappear from wrestling and never watch it again?
Yeah, there's a lot. And I think, part of it has to do with a little bit what we're talking about. It's like, they peaked when they were in sixth grade,
Sure.
And it's like, I'm done. But I think what you said about, that relationship with your son that you hope to have is by the time he's 25 or 30 or whatever, he wants to still be involved with the sport. And that's something that you guys get to share together. I try to do as much as I can where I kind of just am kind of watching and observing. And, one coach I observe a lot is Greg Varela, and I try to pick his brain a lot. And this is because I kind of knew him when I was in high school. With you, I was coaching at a youth tournament, and I think I was wrestling, where we had a kid wrestling right after Dylan. And you were talking to him, and I was kind of just waiting because we were like in the hole, now we're on deck. But the first thing that you said is, hey, like, I love watching you wrestle. Like, I love watching you wrestle. And then you broke down everything that, he needed to work on just, from that match. But I thought, for me is eventually, God willing, I'll be a father, and he loves wrestling, or my daughter loves wrestling. Hopefully I get to kind of remember some of those things.
Yeah.
But, I thought that was a really good way to kind of approach it, where it's like, don't let these things get so mixed up to where I'm your dad first and then I'm your coach.
Sure. Yeah. And obviously I was never in the situation that my kids are in, that, our family's obviously done fairly well at wrestling, and especially in our area, my brother coaches, their team's awesome. Like, I mean, tons of Tirapelles, my dad, me and my brother, etc. So them having that name and, not having to wrestle, but you know what I mean? Like, it's just a different experience than most kids. And I want them to know that I enjoy what I like this. I enjoy watching you compete. Like, do you win them all? No, you don't win them all. But hey, as long as you're out there wrestling as hard as you can, my thing, for parents to listen, my thing is you never give up. Never give up. You're never afraid. You're never afraid to wrestle. Like I said, some of my wrestlers that have never reached their full potential are always afraid. They're always worried about what bad can happen. The other guy, what he's ranked. Like, I just want you to go out there, feel free to wrestle. Obviously, if it's a tougher guy, maybe the techniques and stuff change a little bit, but like, don't be afraid to put on the line, man. Don't be afraid to. The coolest thing about wrestling is standing on the line, you and the other guy, and you're about to fight, right? Like, that's basically what it is. You're about to fight. You're just going to pull out some of the things that can injure each other. You're not going to bite them. You're not going to punch them in the face. But other than that, you're going to try to physically beat their ass. And they're trying to do the same to you. And that's the cool part, right? You step on line, you shake hands, we're about to fight. And having that, having that interaction, understanding that and looking forward to it is a really cool thing. And that's why I think wrestling teaches you something that most sports can't. Not that all sports aren't cool in their own way, but like you don't get nose to nose with somebody and know they're about to fight you very often. And you're okay with it, right? You signed up for this. Like, here we go. Let's see who can do it.
Yeah.
Let's see who comes out on
like
top.
like a school sanctioned fight. Like this is as
For
close
sure.
as you can get it.
For sure. And that's why, like I said, for me, like kind of what you asked, like I want them to know, hey, I enjoy this. I enjoy watching you compete. Just get out there, don't give up, don't be intimidated, wrestle hard. And then if you make mistakes, we can fix that. Talk about it and we get better for the next time. But if you give up, which my older son, again, love him to death. They all got their own personalities, right? There's a couple times, in his career, and even my older one, even my younger one too, just different in a different way. Like I've seen him kind of, concede. We all had those moments, right? Everybody's given up at some point, and you remember it, and it's like that flips me out. Like we never give up. If you're on your back and you're getting teched, you fight off because, well, but I already lost. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Yeah. It's about pride. It's the way you do things. You're learning what wrestling is teaching you is the way you do things in life. You never give up. You're gonna have a hard time with your job. You're gonna have a hard time in your marriage. You're gonna struggle with your kids. There's all kinds of things. You never give up. You always fight the next position. So that kind of stuff for me, like, hey, you're getting your ass beat into the match. You go on your back. You fight off. You don't lay down and get pinned. Like that's really big for me.
You think about, you said everybody has kind of gone through those moments. Do you think about any of those moments 100%. That you might have had? Yeah.
100%. Yeah. I mean, times where, again, you're acting, right? You act like you're doing everything you can, or you went as hard as you could, but you didn't, I wasn't a big, I was feisty, wasn't a big, I wasn't a lay down type person, but there was always times where like I could have done more. I could, I wasn't prepared, wasn't prepared either what I did before the match or before the competition, or right mindset going out there, or the way I wrestled. And yeah, those are the ones that eat you. So
yeah, I still think about some. I mean, it's like, too, like right when you get off the mat, or you're trying to fall asleep that night or whatever, or trying to look yourself in the face in the mirror. It's like, dang it, I wish I would have done a little bit more. Yeah. That's something I try to talk to our guys too about. It's like, you don't want this to be something where you think about 5, 10, 15 years later, or maybe you forget about, and then you have kids and they're going through something similar where it's like, dang, I wish I would have given a little bit more. Yeah. And I think there's two big fears I think a lot of people go through. It's like the fear of being tired, or the fear of failure. I think something that needs to be a little more prevalent is the fear of regret. Like you don't want to have to regret something.
No question. Yeah, I saw like our high school kid finish. I've never had a kid after 20 years come back and say, I wish I wouldn't have worked so hard. It wasn't worth it. I wish I wouldn't have put so much in. I wish I would have done something else. Like it's just getting to that point that is hard, Yeah. I mean, there's so many things you tell kids, like, I never understand the guys that are losing and just stand there, at the end of the match. Like to me, that's like giving up. Like if there's time on the clock, like you should be wrestling. Like I was always trying to wrestle till the very end. And by the way, I wrestled some really terrible matches. There was some really, really bad efforts out there, but like never gave up with time on the clock. Like that's just something you instill. And my dad instilled that in me, that you never get pinned. Like, you just don't give up. And hey, if you get pinned, it sucks, but it's not because you gave up. It's not because you just laid there, and didn't fight as hard as you could. So just like I said, I think those are probably some of the most important lessons I learned, and, and then try to take those. And now that you get older, right, wrestling's everything when you're younger, and then you move on with life, and, life's actually a lot harder than just wrestling. And that's the stuff that was really valuable.
Yeah. And I try to remember this too. Somebody, I forgot who it was, but it was on this podcast, but they were talking about how like, that the kids look at you as a model, like a role model. It's like, yeah, that's obvious, but I think that's like, I'm leading by example. I'm lifting, I'm wrestling, or I'm running with them. I don't run as much anymore just because my knees are getting to that point where I probably shouldn't be running on concrete. I
Yeah,
did
yeah,
run today. I did run today and I regret it, but they look at you on how you treat your wife. Like they look at you and how you're going to treat your kids. And like, since being
sure.
married, I feel like it's helped me be a better coach. Cause it's like, sorry, I'm not going to answer your message at like 8:30. Like I'm with my wife. Like I don't want to answer your message, you know?
Right.
So I think it's trying to balance. I think for me, it's like trying to be that role model in those other parts of my life and trying to prioritize those more so that I could be a better coach for them.
Sure. Yeah, no question. I mean, all the things go into it. Coaching is hard, and as you're younger, obviously you feel close to the kid's age. It's hard to have a good coaching relationship without being their buddy. I like all the kids. I really do. Even the ones that drive you crazy sometimes.
Those are like your favorite though, I bet, huh? The
Yeah,
ones that
yeah.
drive you crazy.
Yeah, it's like I like them. They drive me crazy sometimes, but it's like, hey, I'm your coach. Like I'm here to help you. And I tell them all the time, I'm here to help you be the best you can be. Like I'm here to give you every tool I can possibly give you to help you take the ownership and be the best you can be. I'm not going to tell you you're doing everything right if you're not. We're not best friends. Like kids in your class are your best friends. Like those guys you're going to hang out with. I mean, we have fun on the trips and stuff, but it's like,
Yeah.
hey, I'm here to help you do the things that I was fortunate enough to be able to do or have the opportunity to do. And if you want that, then you got a great place to get those experiences. Cause not everybody does. I mean, you guys, like I said, you guys have some people who wrestled. I mean, look up and down, the state, even the Valley, about how many programs anymore really have guys who wrestled at least some form of a higher level. There's not that many. So like a lot of kids I feel bad. They want to wrestle, but they don't have a lot of good guidance. And so our kids, it's like, hey, you guys are really fortunate. You have great guidance. Doesn't mean you don't have to do the work. That's the hard part, but we're going to help you do the right kind of work and address your shortcomings and, be okay to say, like I said, you're not doing the right thing or that's not right. I mean, all my best guys, like I said, all of our best guys, we just had Nickade graduate. He's going to Nebraska. They all had low points in their career where it's like, hey, you gotta evaluate here. You're not doing all the right things.
We actually had I had Nickade was on this morning, and I asked him, I'm like, hey, Coach Tirapelle is going to be on this afternoon. Do you have a couple questions for him? So he has two.
Okay.
So this might be a good segue, but
Boy,
first,
they're gonna think that was a setup, but geez, I didn't even know.
no. This one was, and he already said that he asked you this when he was in high school, and you already gave the answer, but it was, what'd you do after winning NCAAs? And here's the thing, because I already have the answer recorded, so you'll see it's the same answer.
What did I do like directly after?
Yeah, so you win a national title like that night. What are you doing? How are you spending that night after?
I remember. I mean, people, think this is crazy, but I remember I cried in the shower. I mean, just like I remember thinking, I'll never forget the moment. Like, I mean, it was great. Like I always thought, you can't win a national title not believing 100% that you're going to win it. It's like a foregone conclusion, right? That you're going to win it. That's a mentality you have to even have an opportunity to win. That you're so sure you're going to win because you're the best guy and there's nobody that can beat you. And I bet every guy who's won or even been close to winning would tell you that. But when you get there, it's so much harder than you ever thought it was going to be. Like, I mean, I thought for sure that it was going to happen, right? But you got to have the mentality. I'm just saying that coming out of high school, it was so much more difficult than I ever thought. Because again, wrestlers are weird, man. We're even any high level athlete, right? You're wired to think you're the best. Like, and there's no possible way that anybody could be better than you. But the truth is only one person can stand on top. And nowadays you got 20, 25 guys that all feel the same way, maybe even more. So if you did an interview with every guy, I mean, where you could really pull out their true feelings, not just talk, they really all believe they're going to win. And then there's one guy that ends up winning. So, yeah, I mean, I remember thinking that I can't believe this happened. Like, I'm glad I made it. But God, that was so much harder than I ever thought it was going to be. And it's just one of those things that sticks with you. So cried, just again, overwhelmed, I think, with, emotion that all that I put into it. I mean, right away, I started thinking about all the things I put into it. And I think with any great accomplishment, you start thinking about everything you did to get to that point. And then, like I said, like I tell my kids, it was all worth it, right? Even if I didn't make it, it was all worth it because I gave myself the opportunity to be the best I could possibly be. And if that wasn't good enough, it wasn't good enough. But I didn't leave anything on the table. And so I thought about all the things I put into it, all the extras. I mean, the shit that we hate doing, right? Like running, track sprints. The kids hate track sprints, but I make them do them, right? Like I was volunteering to do them as a senior in college. Like I'm trying to get my coach, like, hey, I think I need another one. We got to go one more. Like I got to get another one of these in. I got to get a couple more in before the postseason, because it's about everything you can do to be the best you can possibly be. You're doing the most painful thing, I swear, on the planet, and you're volunteering to do it because that's where you're at mindset wise. So yeah, so I think that was I said, went up with my family, but we got back to the hotel, said, cried, changed, and then hung out with my family and my friends. And
that's what Nick said. You just went out to dinner. He's like, that's it. Like I thought he was gonna go off and do something crazy. It's like,
yeah,
nope. Like at dinner, which honestly, you come after such like an emotional high. It's like, well, where do you go? It's like, I need to like relax and like calm down.
And you can't come down. It's crazy. It's a crazy feeling. And I'd already been there where I lost too, which was pretty devastating the year before.
I mean, how do you jump back from that? Because like what you said, it's like I had to have that 100% conviction I'm going to win, and a lot of people have that, right? It's like, but only one guy gets it. So it's like everybody that's just invested their soul into doing this don't get what they want, and that's like, well, how do you piece yourself back together?
Yeah, that's the challenge, right? It's like that's the whole coming in and getting your butt kicked when you first get into college or first get into high school or whatever. I remember thinking like, lost, I was totally devastated. Gosh, I wouldn't even watch a match for a few weeks, but then I finally had to. It's like for yourself, right? You have to. Like I got to do this. I got to watch and see what happened. I think I know what happened, but I got to watch. But I just remember thinking like, and I told I think the school reporter was asking me questions afterwards, and she was really nice about it. She knew it was, I was bummed she'd followed me all year. And I said, hey, I got 364 more days till the next one, and I'm gonna do everything I can to be as prepared as I can possibly be and give it one more shot. But I remember thinking like, when you lose, when you make the NCAA finals and you lose, this is not like high school where, okay, you made the state finals, you're probably going back, right? Like, how many guys make the NCAA finals and never get back? Like,
it's hard.
Yeah, you may never see it again, right? So you're one match away. You're 7 minutes away from reaching your goal, and then you got to start all over. It doesn't mean you're not good at wrestling, but like, hey, all those guys that thought they were going to win too, they're coming back, and you're going to do it again. So got all the way there, came up short, lost in overtime, Tony Davis, and then had to run it back. I'm like, okay, we're going all the way back in the mixer, got to get all the way there again, then give myself one more chance. So luckily it worked out.
Yeah. Was there, so this is something that Nick asked too, but he's like, how much extra work were you doing your senior year kind of after that, at that moment? And when you say extra, he's like, he was telling me him and his roommates, they went to Nebraska's wrestling room at like 11 p.m. just go work out. It's like, that's kind of a cool thing to hear, right? Because that's kind of what separates you. Were you doing that a lot your senior year?
Yeah, I mean, throughout your career, I think a lot of it is I try to tell, again, the coaching aspect is try to impart into the kids like the mindset you have to be the best, right? To be on top. Everything was about training and wrestling. Like if you had a day, right? Everything in that day was about training and wrestling. Everything else revolved around that. So like with my kids, it's like the number one thing is practice. Like practice is at 3:30. You come to practice. That's your number one thing in the day. Everything else revolves around that. If you want to go to the lake before that and be back and go to practice, cool. You want to go out after practice and do it, fine. But you're there at practice because that's my most important thing of the day. So everything in college, obviously this is just high school and one day, everything in college revolves around training. When am I getting my lift in? When am I getting my wrestling in? What else extra do I need to do? Like I talked about, doing the track sprints or bikes, Aerodyne sprints or whatever else you were trying to do to prepare lifting. I mean, we were crazy hard lifters. Like this is back when a lot of people didn't lift super hard. They did more like, I call it workouts. If you go in the gym or in the weight room and you're just like doing like a circuit, like you're just working out. Like it's the same thing as doing, cardio, running,
Like a
bike,
CrossFit kind of workout.
CrossFit. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
working out. Like we were strength training, like 4 days a week, super hard, and hour and a half, like because my coach was a lifter. Like,
Yeah.
so luckily that was good, because I was always pretty physical and that really helped me a lot. But yeah, we lifted super hard. And that was like, if you didn't get your lift in, Johnson would freaking lose his mind. Like
Every coach has like their one thing where it's like, if you do this, like you lose your
oh
mind.
my God. Like, and by the way, that was, again, this is college, right? During high school. Like that's not counting practice. We have practice too. But like you get your lift in the morning, whenever that time is, it was 6, 7, 8, 9, whatever. And then you go to practice. And this is summer. Like this is summertime. You get your lift in, you do the camp, you have practice. Okay, we don't have camp. Get your lift in, you have practice. Like that's the level. That's why I laugh. These guys are like, I want to wrestle D1. I'm like, dude, you can't do 2 things a week. Like we're doing 2 things a day, pretty much by default. So anyway, I guess I ramble a little bit. My point is,
that's fine.
It's all like everything is around your training. So yeah, I mean, I was doing tons of stuff, but it wasn't like, it's not more is better. Like that's one thing people fall into. More is better, Well, more is not always better. What if you practice for 5 hours? Well, you can't practice wrestling for 5 hours. It's an intense sport. Like how long were your college practices? Hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes. But it was 45 minutes or, an hour live and hard, and the drilling was hard. And, it was super intense. So you're trying to get all that intensity. That's one thing for Nikkei, I think really help him at the next level. Super talented, great wrestler, loves the sport, doesn't know how to train at a Division I level yet. And it's not, he doesn't have anybody to model that, right? Like even I couldn't wrestle him. I mean, I could wrestle him, but you know what I mean? He's the point where he can beat me because I'm just too freaking old. When I came out of college, I mean, I would have killed it, but it's like, it's just different. So he needs to get in with the Ridge Lovitz, and Antrell Taylors and just go, oh, okay. This is the level of training this is what Adam was talking about. Like I'm putting in a lot of time, but I could be putting in more intensity into my time.
Yeah, it's the quality over quality, quality over quantity. I remember Kerry Colette's like one of my favorite coaches to study, but he was talking about how when he first got to Campbell, he was just going to try to get the guys to do an hour of good practice. That's it. We're going to start with an hour. And he's taking over a program that's kind of wasn't in like a good spot. And he's like, we're just going to just build a culture. We're just going to build the guys from an hour. Once we do an hour, we'll slowly kind of increase in the time. Which I think, again, it's like kids having their mentality sometimes where it's like, if I'm in the room the same amount of time I am with you and you're a state champ or a state placer, well, how come I can't be a state placer? How come I can't be a state champ? And it's like, well, you're kind of focused on yourself. You don't see how they're approaching it. Like they're getting after it. They're being very meticulous. They're doing all this stuff at home. And it kind of goes back to what you're saying. It's got to be about the quality over the quantity. I was just telling our guys this morning about a story of like these 2 lumberjacks, and they're chopping wood the same amount of time. And one guy's getting frustrated because the other guy keeps chopping more wood every single day. He's like, what are you doing? He's like, well, I'm going home for an hour and I'm sharpening my axe. It's like, I'm able to put in a better quality of work because I'm doing it the right way.
That's right. Yeah. And that, that the one thing we have out here that we don't get is that modeled, how to be more intense, how to get, because that's a real skill. Like, an hour is an hour, right? An hour is an hour worldwide, always has been. But their idea of getting a lot out of an hour, and like a college kid's idea, a top college kid. We had Lucas Bird out here that just did a camp, and what he can get out of an hour versus what my high school kids can get out of an hour is like night and day, right?
Yeah.
Because they think they're really wrestling hard, practicing hard. They're talking to each other. I mean, when we had practice, nobody talked. Like you just, once you started going after like warmups, like you just start drilling. You just kept, nobody was talking. Like zero. Nobody was talking. You're not talking to your partner. You're definitely not talking to other groups. Like nobody in the room's talking. It's just all wrestling. And then of course, then you start wrestling live. Of course, nobody's talking then either. And like, my kids, it's like, yeah, we're really, really practicing hard. They're talking to the group next to them, talking over here, and we got a good team, right? We got a good program.
Talking about how like school was today and like who's hanging out with so
Oh
and so, and
God,
it's like,
yeah, exactly. I'm
yeah.
like, what are we doing? Like, I will say, I've learned over time, like, hey, high school, it's a process, right? They're trying to get to where they're more intense and figuring it out, but yeah, it's just different. You got to learn, you got to have that intensity and modeled by other people, and then you can figure it out.
How is it having a Bird and Poeta out in the area and like you get to be around them, those guys?
Yeah, it was great. I remember I did a Zoom like this with Illinois' team. I think when Lucas was a freshman, and they just had questions and just talking like this about my experience and things I did, and it was just really cool to see him now. Obviously we stayed in touch just a little bit, right? But he's doing his thing, and it was cool. I sent him a message after he won. I'm like, "Welcome to the club, champ." Like, I mean, we all get on the wall. Like, it's a pretty big deal there. And it was just neat to hear his perspective, from coming from his true freshman year all the way through, and now being I think 6th year and winning a national championship. So it was pretty awesome.
He has another year, doesn't he?
He
He's
has
come
another
back.
year. Good old
Man,
COVID, right? Yeah.
how like so you're pretty outspoken on Twitter about like rule changes and like things that are happening in our sport, and I think it's really important, at least for me, because I get to kind of and take another perspective. I don't necessarily agree on all your takes,
Sure.
but on some of them, it's like what is going on with these extra years, man? They're talking about getting rid of the red shirt and you just get 5. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like there's so many changes we can do for the sake of changes, but it's like, why are we adding and changing all these things? What it seems like for just to please people.
I think a lot of it comes from the other sports, right? It's all NCAA tied. So the NCAA basically, if you the NCAA at all, they really only care about money,
Yeah,
and that
business.
right there just tells you football and basketball. So everything, all the rules that come down, pretty much come down because of those, and then all the other sports just have to absorb them. So, the original was like, back in my day, it was 5 years, right, to get 4, and if you got like a 6 year, that was crazy. Like, that only happened. I remember Otto Olson, and like, we thought he was like super old. Otto maybe listen to this, but we were like, Otto was the old man, right? At Michigan, he got a
Yeah.
6 year, and it was only if you had like multiple injuries, like you had multiple season-ending injuries, you could get a 6 year. And I'm personally not. I'm not a. I think it's. I don't think you open doors. Like, we all have our challenges, right? Some people get hurt. It's unfortunate. Like, but that's part of sports. Some
Yeah.
people don't make it in pro sports because they had too many injuries. Like, that's life. It's just part of sports. So I'm really like something objective that you can stick to. I don't care what it is. I mean, I thought 5 years to get 4 was fine. But I don't think there should be any exceptions. I don't care. I don't think there should be any exceptions for anything. Like, if you got hurt, it happens. It's unfortunate. Whatever it is. I mean, I don't know how they would get around the religious one, but I'm not a fan of that either. I think that, hey, once you start, the rule is once you start, then you have 5 years to get 4 years competition in. So if you're going to do a religious mission, whether that's Christian or Mormon or whatever, then you got to do that before, or after. But you don't get to do it in the middle. And I know they're not working out. I get it, but maturity is a thing. We see it. It's why kids stay back. Like, you're much more able to wrestle at 23 than you are at 18.
Yeah, 100%. There was a guy, he was a heavyweight for ASU, and I can't remember his name, but he was like super old, I think, and ended up being like 24 or like 23 or something like that. And he was like a junior, but he had
Yeah.
done that mission trip.
Yes.
And I wish I would have known about that. I'm like, dude, I'd go to Russia
I
or like
know.
go to Ukraine.
Now,
And go
on the
train.
true missions like that, I know they don't work out, but it's like, again, it's just slippery slope, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to let things become, well, maybe this, or maybe, it's like, just have a policy and stick to it. That's why, obviously the COVID thing was so crazy. And then,
It
now
didn't even help the seniors that couldn't wrestle during COVID.
it did. And we talked about this. It was basically, again, it was a football driven decision again, because so the COVID kids lost the year, but then when they came back, somebody pointed this out on Twitter, and I was like, okay, that makes sense. I mean, it's still stupid, but it makes sense. When they started in the fall, if you remember, it would have been 21, I think, or fall of 2021, that they were talking about, they weren't even sure they were going to have a season, right? Football season. They were going to do it, but they weren't sure. So then kids wouldn't play. And of course, if they don't play, that's revenue,
Plus
right?
money.
So
Yeah.
they go, fine, we'll give you all a free year. So that way you're going to play football. All the football players are going to play. And if anything happens, they're off the hook because it was a free year anyway. Well, nothing ended up happening, right? They played the whole year like normal. So now everybody played and got a free year. And that's why we have not just 6th, but 7th years now. And
yeah, I mean, that's it's like making this blanket rule that's supposed to fix all the problems, but it's like you're not really looking at everybody. You're just looking at the fall sports or the money making sports. That makes sense, I guess.
Yeah, and that's why it happened.
What about like with the transfer portal stuff? Because I feel like not a lot of people know this. You were a transfer, right? You were at Stanford your freshman year, and then transfer to Illinois. Do you feel like, I mean, obviously this transfer process would be a lot easier if you would have had that in college, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, listen, there's no right answer. I mean, it's good for the kids. There's all kinds of situations, right? Kids get stuck, and then the coach leaves, and then the kids would have to basically lose eligibility to transfer. And they really went there, obviously, to be an athlete for that school and that coach. But now it's like, it's good for the kids, but it's not great for the sport. It's not good that you have to basically pay your kids to stay at your school every year. Like that was, I just got asked this by the Champaign News Gazette. From every now and then they'll write and ask about, something that something that's current, but like, hey, how would this have related to you guys? And they were asking about the NIL deals and the transfer. And I said, listen, for me, I'm glad we didn't have to deal with it, because it was just been one more thing to deal with, right? Should you go somewhere else? Because you can get money. We just didn't have to, we weren't going to get money. Like, I was there to win at wrestling. Like, I loved Illinois. I had a great time. Loved the program, loved the school, and I wanted to be a national champ. And all my focus could go into that versus, every year go back into, I can imagine going into Johnson's office and being like, Coach, what are you going to get me to stay?
What do you think he would say?
I'm going to punch you if you don't stay.
do you talk to some of the guys on the team about this? Like, Nickade, like, you're going to go off and you're going to go to Nebraska and you're going to have these opportunities. Like, are you talking to some of your guys and kind of preparing for this kind of college environment?
Yeah. I mean, we try to give them every tool they can possibly get, that, hey, this is what it's going to be like. And, scholarship wise, what you can expect. We try to be honest with the kids. Like, hey, here's where you're at. Because again, a lot of people go into this recruiting process, and like, they're like, oh yeah, like I was 3rd in California. I'm probably getting a full ride. Like, no, you're not. Like, you're not. Like, and if you go in, you're going to be disappointed. Like, you need to have a realistic expectation. Like, I would say right now, you're a guy that could go to, these schools, and they'll say which schools are interested in, and say, hey, maybe they give you, 40% or 50% or whatever. Now, I know it's changing with the new rules. We just try to give them some real world advice on, hey, here's what you can expect. And then, like, the kid, we tell the kids too, like, got a kid who's, a couple times state placer or whatever, and I'm gonna go to Penn State. I'm like, hey, listen, you can go to Penn State. I'm just telling you, you're a practice room guy. Like, if you want to spend 4 or 5 years, it's provided they could afford it or whatever, like, you're going to just be a practice room guy. Now, can you make the team? Sure, it's possible. But reality is, you're going to practice every day. You're going to do all the things the other kids do, and you're never going to wrestle for the team. And if you want that experience, that's fine. Or in Iowa or whatever, but you should know going into it that, that's probably the experience. And so you pick an experience that you really want. Like, hey, I really want to have a chance to start. Okay, well, these programs you might be able to start. And here's the thing: nowadays, it doesn't matter, because if you go somewhere and you're good, you can leave. You can move somewhere else. Not that I'm saying that's the right thing to do, but like, there's no more restrictions on, oh, if you go here, you're stuck. You can go anywhere. You can go junior college, D2, D3. Look at the D3 kid coming into Iowa this year.
Yeah.
The 97 pounder, right?
Yeah.
So, like,
I always forget his name though.
Yeah, like African name.
Yeah, it's like I'm not gonna try to pronounce it.
But yeah, if you're good enough, like, you make your mark. And somebody told me this with just generally, like I have kids coming through, right? My son's going to be a sophomore. Like if you're going to go nowadays, like ours was so different. Like if nowadays you're looking for an opportunity to go somewhere where you can play or wrestle. So if you're football, baseball, whatever, you got to go somewhere where you can get on the mat, get on the field. Because if you don't, nobody's going to see you, right? You're just shelved. That's it. So rather than go to whatever, rather than go to Iowa for wrestling or, USC for baseball or whatever it is, like go to a smaller school, go to a junior college, be able to show that you can wrestle. And wrestling is so easy too, because it's so direct, right? Hey, if I go somewhere and I start beating guys that are Division I guys, like some Division I programs gonna be like, well, why don't I have this guy? I need this guy. If he wants to be part of my team, I'd love to have him. So it's just a different way of doing it.
Yeah, I think with me, it's like I try to talk to our guys about that kind of stuff. And how much like involved are you with the other side of recruiting? Like with college coaches are trying to recruit certain guys. Are you getting more hands on just because you want to make sure they're being protected and not misled? Like there's a little bit of that stuff goes on. And I mean, we don't necessarily need to get in the details live, but that's like something that I've seen. And it's like I don't know. It's like I don't want to step up and say something because I don't want to burn my bridge with the athlete. But at the same time, you also need to be there, watching their back.
Yeah, no, we're pretty honest to a fault with both sides. I will say most of the college coaches, which is crazy, right? Like we actually wrestled and we're pretty good. And
they don't talk to you.
Never hear from them.
Yeah.
Never hear from them, which is, I mean, to me, just bizarre. Like, why wouldn't you ask at least and say, hey, we're trying to recruit Joe Smith. Like, what do you think of Joe? Because I mean, honestly, I tell, and we tell the kids this too, so they know, like, we're going to be very honest about you. Hopefully that's in a really good way, how hard of a worker you are and how much you love wrestling, and you're going to be a great asset to their program. But we're going to tell the truth because that's our reputation on the line too. And we got other kids coming through. And just even if we didn't, it's just the way we are. Like, I want to be honest with the coaches so they know what they're getting and they feel like it's a good value for what what they're looking for. And the same thing with our kids. Like we'll be involved in the recruiting process as they want us to. Most of the time, it's not very involved. Sometimes I will say, like, somebody like Nickade, whose dad actually was an All-American, like he's very interested in what I think and what the coaches think, and hey, is this a good program? And then some other kids we've had come through, they just kind of do it all on their own and go where they want to go, and that's fine. Like I have no issue with either one because I feel like it's your thing, right? As an athlete, you only get to do this once. You got to go where you want to go. If you want to ask me my opinion or help you, I'm happy to do that. If you want to just do it yourself, that's fine. For the college coaches, like I said, if they reach out, I try to give them a realistic feel. I have coaches that reach out to me all the time about other kids, other kids in California. What do you think of this kid? What do you think of this kid? Who, I have one coach, I won't use a bunch of names, but one coach calls me every so often. It was like, top 5 kids in California. Who are they? Regardless of class. Like, because they just want to recruit the best. That's why it's so funny. Like, kids think that, well, if I win state, like every program's going to come. They don't even know who won state. They have no clue. Like college coaches, they don't know who was state champion. I mean, they could look it up, but mostly they're just looking for best of the best. And, they're not noticing you if you're not doing the things to get noticed. Like go wrestle at national events, reach out to them. Like reach out. If you want to go to whatever, right? You want to go to Minnesota. Like I'd reach out to Brandon Agam, and say, hey, I'm really interested in going there. Here's what I've done. I'd like to come to your camp, maybe take a look at me, like that kind of stuff. Right. Like kids, I feel like the recruiting process is so unknown, right? But people get such bad advice because they just think like they just sit there and everybody's going to come after you. And it's just not going to happen. Especially out here in California, right? Because
if you're kind of on an island.
Yeah. And if you're okay, so I use Minnesota, just a good example, right? If you're in Minneapolis, Minnesota, what are the chances that you think a California kid, number one, wants to come to Minnesota, but number two, can stay there through the weather and through the cold and the culture shock and everything? Like you're way better off getting the exact same wrestler and maybe just a little bit lower level wrestler, pretty close, right? that comes from Apple Valley or Simile or whatever, right there in Minneapolis. Like,
Yeah.
hey, this guy has grown up here. His whole family's from here. Like, he's not going to be homesick. So you're right away at a disadvantage being out here. And so if you want to go to those places, which I know a lot of our kids do, they want to go, somewhere, you gotta show that you're not the normal, right? You're not
Yeah.
going to be afraid. Like, I want to go out. I want to be there. Like, show me what I need to do. I want to be at your school. So,
Well, some of that culture shock is real. So I was actually born in Carroll Stream, Illinois, and
oh yeah,
I moved to Santa
Glenbard.
Cruz. Yeah. So I would have. That's the high school my brothers went. That's where I would have gone. But I moved in seventh grade to Santa Cruz, which is like a beach town, and
Oh
like
yeah, it's a
no
little
wrestling.
different, huh?
So that culture shock is real. I'm trying to think like I feel like it's kind of changed in the past few years in terms of how many California guys are going to these Big Ten schools. But I was trying to think of Minnesota specifically. I think Andrew Sparks the only one that's
Yeah,
gone in the last like I don't know 10 years maybe.
yeah.
But
It's hard.
that's such real.
It's hard because we face so many challenges coming from here. But like I was just God, I can't remember who I was talking to this the other day. I said, hey, we're talking about California kids and recruiting and going to wrestle at Division I college. Going to wrestling college. And I said we have a lot of kids that go to wrestling college. We just
Yeah.
don't have a lot of kids that make it because a lot of them just don't. They just don't make their career. Doesn't, and I'm not even talking about just being national champion or whatever. Just like making it through your career. We have so many kids that are capable out here. If you talk like, high school level wrestling, we have some really good wrestlers, but they got to get in the right, got to get to a school, got to get in the right program, right environment, not get homesick, have goals, stay there, all the different things that make it through their career.
I'm always trying to think like I wrestle at CCB and I thought initially, all right, I'm going to coach at one of the local high schools and I'm going to feed like all these tough kids over to CCB. But at the same time, I'm trying to balance like, well, what's best for the kids? And like,
Yeah.
I've only had like a couple guys actually go to Cal State. Like most of them are going to other places. And part
Right.
of it's like, I want them, if they want to get out of Bakersfield and that's what's best for them, I want them to get out. When Fresno State was around kind of for that little blip, was that something that you were trying to balance too? Like, yeah, we want to build this up and we want to support it. But at the same time, it's like, if you have kids that, yeah, it's probably better to get out of Clovis, out of Fresno and go do something else and be somewhere
Sure.
else.
For the kids that can get out, but I mean, that's why it sucks that got Bakersfield still there, Fresno State, and we have so many kids that can wrestle in college, but they're not going to get massive money offers, right? And so they can't afford to go pay 50-60 grand a year just to try to go wrestle at some school that where a kid from back there can get in-state tuition and it's a lot easier. So Fresno State was a great outlet. I mean, we had at one time we had 5 or 6 kids on Fresno State's roster, and a couple of the kids wouldn't have wrestled in college without Fresno State. They wouldn't have the opportunity. So, and they, and they did pretty well. So you lose those opportunities with the local, being gone. But yeah, listen, it's hard to wrestle at that level, Division I, and then it's even harder to have a kid who can get enough money, financially to go to a program that's out of state and across the country, and then be good enough that program wants them. So, I mean, we've had a good program for a lot of years now, and we haven't had a lot of guys that have gone, across the country and, wrestled and got a lot of money and, stayed there and been successful. It's just hard to do. And same with, and Buchanan's been really good. And I mean, they're in the same boat. I mean, how many times have they won? They've had a bunch of kids, but it's like, man, coming up with that kid that can, like I said, do the extraordinary of going across the country, wrestling for a big program, making it there. It's hard to do.
Yeah, it's hard because especially you're going to be, for kind of virtually by yourself. Like you're not going to be close to your family and maybe have that support system out there.
That's where, like I said, that's where that goes and just being obsessive. I mean, guys that are obsessive. I know my mom was still like, she probably was still irritated, but like, I didn't even come home. Like as a senior, I didn't come home. Like I was, didn't come home for Christmas, didn't come home for Thanksgiving. Like I think I came home for a couple weeks, maybe in the summer. And, not always a great thing for moms. They want to see you, but it's like, I mean, I had things I wanted to do, got to be a little bit selfish at that level. And then, I will tell you the reason I didn't wrestle after college is because you got to even be way more. I wrestled a little bit after college, but you got to be way more selfish to wrestle at the, at the world level, because now you don't have a team. You are your team. Your team team Taylor, team Burrows, team, team Tirapelle, team whatever. Like, you got to find all your training. You got to do, you got to basically do it all yourself, and it's got to be singularly focused on you. And that's the only way you can, compete at that level. And the guys that do it, I don't mean it in a bad way. I'm not saying they're selfish. Yeah. Obviously, Taylor's coaching now, and he's a really good coach. But like, to compete at that level, when you lose that, talk about support system. Like, forget your family. Now you lost your basically college program because you're not really part of a program anymore. You're just maybe you wrestle for that team, but like,
yeah,
you're now on your own. You're wrestling internationally. You're traveling overseas. It's different.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, at least for me, that's something I think about is like you kind of have to put your other part of your life on pause a little bit, or maybe not necessarily on pause, but you're not giving everything that you could, whether it's a job or family or whatever. So some of these guys that like are doing it, and they're like in their mid to late 30s. Like, I mean, I have no issue if that's what you want to do, and
sure,
you want to pursue a World Olympic title. But I mean, maybe it would change if I was good enough to be able to compete at that level. But in my head, I'm like, dude, I want to do other things. Like, I want to be a father, and
yeah, you're where I was at. That's why I stopped. I wrestled 2 years. The next year was the Olympic year. Again, I was in the mix, definitely not the guy or anything. But yeah, I was just like, I saw these guys that were in their 30s and they were still wrestling, and good for them, happy for them. But like, I just didn't want to be that guy. I didn't want to wake up one day and, I went to business school, I got an MBA in finance. I wanted to do some things. And I just didn't understand how, like, okay, I'm 32, 33. And then I finally start, trying to get a job or whatever I want to do. And then they go, so where have you been for the last decade? Oh, I've been wrestling. You know what I mean? And to us, it makes sense. But like to the real world, that I don't know that makes a lot of sense. Like, so
maybe work on your pitch a little bit more. I was like, well, I was chasing my Olympic dream, or like trying to make a world team.
Well, what have you been doing in the meantime? Well, I just training. Just lifting, mostly lifting and running, wrestling. It's like, again, we get it, but like, it's just, there are forks in the road in life and you have to make decisions. I stopped. I don't regret it a second. The guys I wrestled with, some of them made the world and Olympic teams, and super happy for them. They did amazing. But yeah, for me, wouldn't change it, wouldn't go back, and I have no regrets. It was exactly what I wanted to do. And I'm glad I did it. And for other guys, they went a different direction, and hopefully that was what they wanted to do, and they got a lot out of it too. But you can't just keep going, right? At some point, you got to stop wrestling, and you got to.
The wheels are going to fall off at some point too, so be aware of that.
Yeah, no question. It's exciting. It's not a golf, right? It's not something you're just gonna keep doing. You're
go on the weekends. Yeah. They give you a handicap.
I've seen some people doing some adult wrestling, and I'm like, man, good for you guys.
Well, I ended up wrestling in a tournament a couple of years ago, but it was because we had the USA tournament right after state, and I kind of waited a little bit to get my background check, and I wasn't going to clear in time. And then at the same day, I was like, dude, how am I going to get down there? Like, well, maybe I can sneak down, but they're usually pretty tight with security. Right.
Signed up.
But I kind of had to. Somebody posted it was like a free open registration. I'm like, all right. So I ended up signing up, and I ended up wrestling. I'm like, okay, well, this would be a good opportunity to kind of work on like some post match like recovery stuff I've been looking at, and like be an example of how to like warm up and compete. Right. But I have no I guess desire to get really back serious competing. But some of the guys that were there were like fresh off the couch. So it was like, why am I didn't pay any money, but it's like, this was, like the guy I wrestled in the finals. He was like one of those guys that, like a JV wrestler will come up and start talking to you. Like, oh, you coach? We're like, where do you coach at? Like, oh, if we both win this match, we'll be in the finals and we'll wrestle it like that. Yeah. And I'm trying, like, I have that old like mentality. Yeah. Like, we're about to compete.
I'm serious.
Like, I'm not gonna be a friend. But he gets so tired. Like I put my hand on his shoulder, and he kind of takes a step out of bounds and pretends to faint to kind of get out of the match. So like, it's like, dude, I'm not going back. I'm not going back.
You don't realize that if you go into like a lot of the veterans, that maybe not the world level, but like you go to a lot of like the veterans level type stuff.
The open, like anybody can go in there and,
like, it's a lot of people that maybe didn't do a lot of wrestling, but like they found the sport later, and hey, they just want to do it. So it's definitely it's a more JV level than you.
And there's nothing wrong. Like if guys want to sign up and do that. like I remember in college we go to the US Open and I would go like 2-2, but my two wins would be against, some older guy that would show up or like a Division 2 guy. And then I'd run to like, like Dudley. And then I would lose to him in the quarters. And then I'd have like Nick Reiner or somebody in the background.
I know.
It's like
US
there's
Open
different
was so
tiers.
good. Do they still do that? Is
Yeah.
US Open? Can literally anybody just enter?
Anybody can go. So if you're looking to dust your shoes off and get back in there,
I'm not.
you
No,
could.
not at all. I know where I'm at, but like there are people that I know would just show up and like, dude, that guy probably hasn't wrestled in years. And I'm thinking, I hope he has insurance, medical insurance, because I know how injured I get now just doing like, just doing little stuff. Then you go out there and they're going out against top guys,
Yeah.
I remember
Yeah.
watching Brands wrestle some of those guys back in the day. Like we'd show up at
Yeah.
the Open. I was in high school, right? And then be Brands and then some random guy who just signed up for the Open. This guy's gonna get hurt, man.
I would be afraid. It's like, because if you wrestle somebody that knows how to wrestle, it's like it's one thing. But if you wrestle somebody that doesn't really know a whole lot or is like a whole level beneath you, like they take a weird shot or they try to throw
Yeah.
you and you end up getting hurt. Like with the high school guys, when I got first done like competing in college, I'd go in. They're like, "Well, I'm going to take you down because you're this and that." And it's like, all right, just don't hurt me.
That's why I thought at the Open though, maybe they got. I think a few years ago, or maybe, again, it's all running together, but I thought they did like a pre-tournament where like you had to like win enough to get into the bracket, and basically they had like all the guys that were the real wrestlers, right? Like true, U.S. Open level, college level guys that are trying to compete. I thought they were in the second group, and I want to say there was like 16 of those, and then like the rest of the bracket had to wrestle to get in to wrestle those guys.
Was that like a couple of years ago?
I think it was because they were trying to get, because it got so huge, right? Like, I don't care how good you are. Cale Sanderson, Dave Taylor, whoever you want to, like, you can't wrestle 8-9 matches. Like, it's just too much. Like, it's too many matches. And again, you're putting up our best guys and giving them a chance to get hurt for no reason. So I thought that they tried to basically separate it into like kind of a qualification tournament. Like, okay, you got into the real tournament to get rid of the, guys that are just, they can still sign up. You know what I mean? You don't get to just wrestle David Taylor because you drew it. Like, you got to win a few matches to get into the real tournament.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that, but if they do have, like, that's a good idea, and they should.
It was a great, yeah. I was like, God, this makes sense. I'm glad they finally did that, because like I said, guys just sign up and then they're there to have a good time, hang out in Vegas, right? I mean, it's fun.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm not much of like a gambler, like a partier, so it's like whenever we go there for like freak show, it's like, what am I gonna do? Like, I don't want to pay like an extra $30 for food that I don't normally want to get, and it's like I don't gamble. It's like I don't want to go sit in the venue either. I guess I'll just go watch TV or read a book or something.
Good old Vegas Convention Center.
Well, Coach, we've been going for over an hour, and I want to be kind of conscious of your time. If you could go back and you could tell your younger self something that would maybe help you in your coaching journey, what's like one or two things you would say?
Am I coaching?
Yeah. Or coaching or life, or however you want to take it.
Gosh. I feel like I did most of the things I want to do. Honestly, I think the biggest fear for people, and I talk about this when I talk to kids or done speeches at graduations or, sports graduation type things, you can't be afraid to go all in. It's the hardest thing to do in life. The hardest thing to do is to put all your eggs in one basket and go for it, because it seems like it would be the easiest, right? But what happens is that you feel like if you just hold back, then you won't be disappointed. And you know what I'm saying? Like, to get kids to really commit to putting everything into their goals, like, it's really hard for people to do because they're afraid of failure. If they fail, it's like you've lost everything. And it's not the truth. Like, if you fail, you gave it everything. And I feel like that was one of the things that I probably learned throughout my career, because I was afraid. We're all afraid of it, right? You always want to hedge, like, and that's why you get the guys that don't really want to do the extra or say their goals out. Like, I got to be a state champ. You know what I mean? Like, they want to be a state champ, but like, I don't want to put everything into it, because if I do, it's going to hurt like hell if you don't make it. And that's where, like I said, my college, I explained a little bit with my Division I career and experience. Like, I mean, I was just put everything. It was all in, right? And then when I didn't make it, it hurt. I mean, it hurt really bad, like really, really bad, like something that you don't want to experience, but you have to if if you want to achieve certain things. And I swear, I will never have the ability to validate this because I did end up winning my last year. But if I didn't, it was worth it. It was totally worth it. Just going for it and putting everything into into your goals. And I talk about this all the time. It's the old the one I use is the old fable with the chicken and the pig, and they're gonna make a breakfast for the farmer, and the chicken's involved, but the pig's fully committed. And we always say, like, be the pig, be fully committed. It seems stupid, and if you explain it to people, they're like, I'd want to be the chicken. Like, why would I want to be the pig? The pig's it. The pig's the answer. Like, that's sports. If you want to be good, you got to be the pig. You got to be all in, where you're fully committed to it, and there's no bridge behind you. And that was part of the, I know it's a long answer, but that was part of the college thing too. The guys that have success, there is no back door. There is no way back. Like, they burn the bridge down. Like, I came across the bridge. There's no way back home. I'm here and I'm getting it done. Because if you give yourself outs, if you give yourself opportunities to, I mean, our mind works, well, I'm in a good school, I don't really need wrestling. Well, I got a girlfriend. I'm going to get married. I'm just going to have kids. And you could come up with 800 of these or more, but they're all just outs. They're all excuses that make it easier on you to not, try to achieve what you want to achieve. So, long answer, be all in. It's the best. It will teach you more about yourself and about life than anything else. And it's really hard to do. And it may hurt when you lose, but, or you don't make it, but it's worth it.